Chapter 14, Breaking Point. After the holidays, Danielle felt like she was losing control of all aspects of her life. Her IV treatments were not showing the same improvement they once were. Danielle felt the pain start to increase during and after each treatment. Also, she was not showing the signs of steady improvement that she had over the previous several months. The increased discomfort had her scared. She always worried the cancer was spreading and potentially where it could spread to next. Her greatest fears being cancers that caused horrible and terrible deaths like liver or brain cancer. So many concerns put too much strain on her body. I would have to say that looking back, I don't know how I could have possibly eliminated all the stresses that confronted Danielle, short of doing it all again with all the knowledge I have now. However, without going through what we went through, I wouldn't have all the knowledge I have now. A conundrum that I still wrestle with to this day. There was still so much working in our favor. I couldn't believe the treatment funding appeared with a perfect job schedule too, while also having two perfect living situations manifest at the perfect time. Even the timing of doctor arrivals, to the perfection of our meeting, and even our wedding day was miraculous. There was honestly so much beauty amidst a sea of troubles. The new year would bring more undesirable troubles and fewer miracles. For the first several weeks of January, Danielle and I were facing truly terrible times. These few weeks would prove to be not only our greatest obstacle, but a time I am still grateful to have endured. I, for the last and final time, reached my breaking point, a point that broke Danielle's spirit and my strength. It wasn't anything specific that caused me to break again. I had reached the end of my ropes and nothing could stop my decline. My behavior was unacceptable, according to Danielle. Despite feeling like I was doing my best, the conflict in our relationship was quickly starting to accelerate. Danielle was increasingly starting to take all her anger and frustrations out on me. I accepted her wrath as punishment for my past behavior. I felt I deserved it, apparently as much as she did. However, the constant punishment was also causing me to become unstable. We became stuck in a vicious cycle that created more instability. Danielle feared I would show my instability just when she needed me the most. She didn't want to live in an environment where she may not have the strength to do something about it. I could not entertain the idea of losing to cancer, creating additional disagreements. Danielle would express she was dying, which would always trigger my emotional response. I would almost forbid the conversation, despite Danielle's pleas that she was doing worse. The prolonged struggle finally was the straw that broke the camel's back. I couldn't for one instant accept that my wife was going to die. I knew that all the treatments we were doing were supposed to be curing her. There wasn't a chance that we would fail. Entertaining the idea of losing the battle to cancer was never even a possibility for me. The topic further divided us. 4 months straight, I was holding the space that we would beat the disease. I couldn't imagine the thought of losing my wife to cancer, and it was a pride issue for me. I had studied curing and treating cancer alternatively for at least 6 years. I felt proficient in my knowledge, including my hands-on knowledge learned through the doctors. I thought that without a doubt, I could heal my wife and make her cancer-free. We were going to beat this disease, and I didn't want to hear otherwise. Danielle no longer agreed with this assumption. Her health wasn't improving. I failed to see the problem subtly worsen. My shortcomings were leaving me short-sighted. The added issues she was developing were causing her more concerns. Danielle was getting worse, and I wasn't doing anything to make the situation better. Almost 2 weeks into January, Danielle started taking a real turn for the worst. I wasn't willing to accept her decline, and it was causing increased tension. I was still working 6 days a week, and the added stress of my being away was not helping the situation. Nothing Danielle or I did was making things better, and Danielle's failing strength was making everything harder for her. The IVs had become unbearable at this point, and the relief given was nothing compared to the healing crisis she would have those nights. We were taking 3 to 5 showers a night to help with the pain. It would usually just be temporary relief, and I would always reapply the meds for additional relief. I was finding the medicinal marijuana that we were using was not strong enough to manage the pain that Danielle was feeling. I tried everything and still nothing. Danielle knew her treatments weren't working as well as they should, which was also causing Danielle to lose faith in the treatment. If it wasn't going to make her better, then why was she subjecting herself to additional pain or self-torture? It was just about this time that she started having more problems with her bathroom breaks, too. Just after the first 2 weeks of January, Danielle was showing problems in her urinary tract. She was having discomfort mixed with having to pee almost on the hour. It had her very concerned. To add to concerns, I was expecting my dad for a visit. It was the first time I had seen my dad since my birthday in August, when he first met my wife. I had known for a couple of days that he was coming up, and Danielle was fine with him visiting for the weekend. We weren't expecting the whole weekend to blow up the way it did, but the timing in a way couldn't have been better. After one of the hardest treatments that she ever endured and a mess of additional health concerns, Danielle decided that she needed to go to the hospital. It wasn't an emergency, but it was dire. We decided to have it checked out during a healing crisis in the middle of the night. I finally admitted that the situation was getting worse. However, I also had to work at 7 in the morning. I couldn't screw over my work, but I also knew I had to take Danielle to a hospital to check on what was happening. Since the situation had been building over time, it wasn't an urgent emergency. However, it was hard to deny the signs. Danielle had taken huge steps backwards over the previous several weeks. I was finally starting to accept that things weren't improving, and things were not looking good overall. I was heartbroken as I went into work that day. I probably cried at least 4 times just getting the food together for my early morning delivery. I also had a talk with my manager that brought us both to tears. I knew that there wasn't any way that I was going to be able to work anymore with Danielle's health deteriorating. Thankfully, Danielle's friend, who had been helping us out, had also given Danielle another check to pay for further expenses. I was able to tell my manager that I was done working after that shift. I felt bad having to give such short notice to them, but I also knew that my wife's health was more important. Truthfully, I didn't feel as guilty because I had worked so many extra shifts for the restaurant. I was the one who picked up shifts left and right when other people were unable to work, and now it was my turn to have someone pick up the slack for me. I felt I had earned the right to do what I did, so I did it without looking back. I tried to contain my emotions at work. Thankfully, it was a delivery, and I didn't have to talk to many people. I fell into a deep state of depression, seeing very little hope on the horizon. I was finally coming to terms that my wife might not win this fight. She had told me for the past week that things weren't looking good, but I didn't listen. I tried to be the positive reassurance in the relationship, but my emotional problems were making that impossible. So now I was left with a blinding realization. We both needed help. So I made sure that I let my dad know what was going on before he left Tucson. The dire circumstances and our decision to go to the hospital in Flagstaff had inspired both of my parents to make the journey. We were even going to be meeting up with Danielle's close friend and gracious benefactor. She lived in Flagstaff, so it was an easy drive over for a visit. I was relieved to have the additional support I so desperately needed. To say it was a bit of a tense ride to Flagstaff would be an understatement. Being in the hospital, Danielle was relieved to start getting more answers. I was relieved to have the additional support. Danielle's friend was the first to arrive, which allowed me to step outside for a quick smoke break. I had to navigate the massive snowbanks, but thankfully the roads and parking lots were mostly clear for walking and driving. Flagstaff was located high in the mountains, having far more extreme winters compared to Sedona. It was refreshing to step out and also check on my parents' progress. My parents texted me that they were still several hours away. Their journey was about 4 hours from start to finish, so I wasn't expecting them to meet us there. I enjoyed a discreet smoke out the side of my car. I needed to be my best for Danielle, and I finally had an opportunity to reset. Danielle needed me to be calm for the report on her condition. I wasn't having an easy time either with all the emotions flying around. I was at my breaking point, and it seemed Danielle was too. All of my emotional instability aside, we were both still concerned with Danielle's growing health problems. The hospital had to run tests to figure out the source of the issues. We were accustomed to waiting for results. Danielle's first concern was a possible vaginal infection from the tube that was dislodged. A urinary infection would be horrible for Danielle. Danielle knew her body, and she knew that her body did not react well to antibiotics. She knew it was going to be even worse with how sick she was. The fears were growing exponentially. The main concern still always being the possibility of constipation with any medications. Danielle was scheduled for a full body scan to find out if the cancer was spreading too. Spreading was possibly the greatest fear of all, but still wasn't the main issue that we were there to address. All of these possibilities and unknowns were stressful on Danielle and me. There wasn't anything that I could do to make her feel better, and her bitterness towards me just made things worse. Danielle was constantly testing me at this point, pushing my triggers in a way to vent her anger on me. I did everything in my power to handle that with grace and ease. It wasn't easy, and thanks to her friend arriving, things became much more peaceful. It was such a blessing to have someone there to help us through that day. God knows we needed the support. Thank you for listening. Please feel free to like, share, or comment on any of the free chapters from the website dancingbeyondcancer.com. It is a story that must be shared to help others face the challenges of cancer. More chapters available every Monday. You can support the author on dancingBeyondCancer.com by purchasing the book, making a donation, or making a pledge on Patreon. As always, thank you again for all the continued support.